Hey, welcome back to our channel. In this video, I want to talk to you about art fairs. What kind of art fairs are there and how to choose the right ones for you and also help you get ready for the fairs. I've visited and reported on countless art fairs around the world, but I'm not an artist myself, so I haven't actually shown my art, in a booth. Here, I have a special guest. Ta-da! Rafa!
It's been a interesting journey, and the way I started doing art fairs was very fortuitous. I don't know how you say it in English. It was very lucky. It was really by luck. I did a show, not a show, but I participated in a campaign in a mall here in Lima, and they asked me. They were doing a fair of artists and entrepreneurship inside the mall. And what happened there is they told me, hey, you can have this booth for free and bring your work. And we're going to put you in a very hot area of the mall because in a hot area means it has a lot of transit. Let's see how it goes. And really, my idea and my preconception at that point was, oh my God, what would I do in a mall? Probably, the average ticket of someone in a mall is going to be, it's probably $100, $100. Even if they are not very expensive pieces, they are still expensive pieces for that kind of ticket. What you get when you are in a place with a high flow of people, your chances and opportunities increase exponentially because there's a lot of people. What happened to me was that, really sales went very well to my surprise. But at the same time, you have like 20 or 30 good buyers for 300 or 500 people who just see your stuff and ask whatever. Or people who just don't understand your work, or they look at it in a very kind of, they touch it, they pick it up, they look at it like if it was a product. Because when you're going to a mall, that's exactly what you are. You don't have this aura of sanctity, that usually you have when you go to a gallery. When you go to a gallery or to a museum, you do not dare to touch the work, although I've done it several times. Because artists, we need to touch things. We need to see them closer. We need to understand how did the artist did this or did that. You see a Van Gogh and you want to touch the painting because you want to understand, how much oil he's putting in his brush to get that effect. It's a different kind of learning. We don't like barriers, we don't like prohibitions. But then, when you are in a mall, you have that. But you have incredible amount of people that are looking at your work. So then you have to ask yourself, what kind of work I do? If my work is the kind of work that you think could appeal, so that people will understand it, or does it need the context of a gallery or a museum in order for making it more understandable and additional information that gives your work more meaning? You see what I mean? In my case, because I'm very drawn to toys, to design objects, to robots, to all this pop culture from the 80s and 90s, my sensation is that my work appeals to people who have a sensitivity for that. Anyone who likes toys. So you can have a grown up who has a very childlike spirit. He would like my things, or you will have a kid, who would see my Wacko or my characters of my Perugis or whatever. They would just find it fun to see, joyful, easy to understand at a glance. So apparently, what happened in that time, and when I was in that mall, a gallerist found my shop who was in the mall at that time. It was Christmas. And he thought, hey, this could work. If you want to work with me, contact me and see maybe we can do something. So I contacted him. He was doing an art fair in Singapore. So we went to Singapore. This is one thing that maybe it has to be clear, and I think it's something that works for me, and and I'm lucky because of it, that I have access to resources. So I can pay my plane ticket to Singapore, and I can pay, my hotel, and I can take my stuff with me. If I hadn't had any access to resources at that time, probably what would have happened is that the gallerist would have had to take my stuff to the art fair. If that's the case, he could have only take so much because he has a limited amount of space. He doesn't have a private plane. So he has two suitcases or three suitcases or four suitcases that he takes stuff with him. At that time, I had the means to go with him to Singapore. I went to Singapore. I brought like 8, 9, 10 pieces, some limited edition prints, and it went very well in Singapore. We met another gallerist she lived in Korea and she wanted to work with me. And then this gallery who lived in Korea, she also participated in art fair in Japan. She took my stuff in Japan. I also could travel to Japan and I also could take the stuff with me. So you make things easier for the gallerist. And that's a big plus. And that's why I always say, if you're an artist, it's always easier if you are in a place where it's cheaper to move your work around, right? So for instance, if you live in Europe, you can just pick your stuff, put it in a suitcase and travel, in Ryanair, or you can travel by train, or you can hire a car with a group of friends and move to a place and go to a place and get an Airbnb. So and it makes it just easier to show your work around and to go to as many fairs as you can if you have the gallery that wants to work with you. The disadvantage of that is that at the same time, there's a lot of artists showing their work to a lot of people, right? So you are not the only one. And there's a lot of artists like, hustling and doing things to call for attention. So that's the downside because you're not special, really. Your work could be real amazing, but you're just one of a lot of the great artists that they are there with you together, no? But then, there's nothing you can do about that. That's the only way you have to do it. Like you have to be there and show your work and be there and show your work and be there and show your work. From my experience, then, the art fairs I've done is I've shown my work in Singapore, where I was really successful because I took a lot of pieces and I managed to sell several of those pieces. That's one. Then I went to Tokyo, and in Tokyo I was not successful. So I also took a lot of pieces, but the Japanese public there it seemed to me that they were interested in the work, but they are very interested in your curriculum, in your CV. Where have you studied? What shows have you done? What are your degrees, your achievements, in order to see if you are worth what you are, wanting to charge. No, and that's the thing. Before Singapore, and I'm remembering this because before Singapore, I did an art fair in Art Week Miami, and in that place I had a solo booth, and I went there with another gallerist who invited me, and this was in a new art fair called Ex-Contemporary Art Fair. What happened there was that Miami Art Week has become like a hotspot. It's probably the most important art week in the world right now. My last art fair there was before COVID. It's like a huge art festival. There are like 22, 23 art fairs. And Miami gets packed with people. And it's party after party after party after party. They are inviting celebrities, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sylvester Stallone. So it's like this huge party. People do not have the time to see everything. So you have to find where would you exhibit your work in the most effective way for the crowd that likes the kind of work you're exhibiting to find it. You see what I mean? And that's the challenge in Miami, at least in Miami Art Week. Let's forget about the expensive, of how expensive it is at this point, because it's very expensive. Now it has to be more expensive than before because, prices in Miami have risen after COVID, prices in Miami have risen a lot. So everything has become very expensive. Transportation, Uber, everything is super expensive. Then you have 20 art fairs or 20 or 30 or 22 art fairs. So you have to think, okay, which is the art fair that will select the kind of work that speaks to the crowd that's looking the kind of work I have. Like, for instance, art fair called Pinta. which is kind of like the South American or the Latin American art fair for Latin American artists. Most of the work that I was seeing there was very serious highbrow art. So you would see a lot of conceptual art, or a lot of kinetic art, or a lot of abstract art. People taking themselves super serious when they were talking about immigration and the environment and colonialism and blah 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 blah. No, they were like super serious, and I was like the funny guy in the classroom. They seemed more to me like lawyers than artists. No, because they were like very, very serious artists, very serious art. They were talking about very serious topics. But then if you go to, for instance, Art Miami, the landscapes change completely. Then the kind of art that you see is shiny, pop art, Jeff Koons, everything made of these very shiny objects, very popish. So then you go to another art fair, for instance, Scope. And that art fair is character art, more pop, but at the same time very playful, and it was funny. What I've got from all my visit to different art fairs is that, okay, this is the one I want to be because my crowd is here. The community of people who like to do, I don't know, playful art is here. And you can see it in the work of the people. So then you have to pick in which one you want to be, because that art fair will capture the people that is looking for art that is similar to yours.
At first, you started out with a very small, like a shopping mall art fair, and then you went to this super fancy ones in Miami. So, as an artist starting out, would you rather save money, maybe save 1 or 2 years, just for one big, flashy, high-end art fair or like high-cost art fair in a really good location, or would you rather just chop it up into small pieces and invest in local small fairs, but consistently, frequently, so that at least, every season you're doing something?
The second option sounds better to me. If you want to bet big, I think, so the possibility is that, it's like, you want to go and play the Champions League, right? And you might be lucky and you might be, discovered, and you can, take it out of the stadium. That's the possibility. However, when you are going to the champions, you are competing with the big guys who have infinite amount of resources and will capture the biggest amount of attention. You have to be prepared for the fact that you're going to play small, that you're going to be outspent. You will have to try to do your best, but even that, it will not be enough. And you will not have a monetary return. You will learn a lot. You will see a lot of stuff. You will meet a lot of people, but you might not have the equivalent monetary return for the effort. Okay? So you have to keep in mind with that, and you have to be at peace with that. You have to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take my chances, see how it goes. And if nothing happens, nothing happens, and it's okay, and I keep moving forward. So you're making an expensive bet, so you have to be willing to lose it all, because it's a bet in the end. In my case, what happened was this. And how did I end it in Milan? The way it worked was, there is a very important gallery in Milan called the Espacio de Rossana Orlandi. Rossana Orlandi, she's a very well-known Milanese art curator and design curator. And she has a very exquisite eye to select new things, and she has a reputation for discovering new talent. Her gallery, it's more of a concept store, but it's a huge gallery in Milano. It was a former factory of, corbatas, tie factory in Milan. And it's now converted to this huge space where, Mrs. Orlandi shows the work of people who are really, really high-end, well-recognized Milanese and European artists, and also, new talent. I had the audacity of, sending her an email and say, hey, this is my work. I made a very nice catalog of the things I had. I sent her information, blah, 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 blah. I sent an email to the gallery. And amazingly, Mrs. Orlandi wrote back and said, Mr. Lanfranco, I love your work. I love your work and I would love to introduce you in the Milano Design Week. So me and my wife, my wife is also a super design lover. She told me, you know what, we have to go. This is a chance. This is a chance to play in a major league. This is a huge thing. It's a very important place. It's a very important gallery. And we have to go and show your work. So we did. It was not easy because, and yes, this is a thing, for them to get the work inside the gallery legally, it had to be from a EU country, or if it's not an EU country, it had to comply with several XXX requirements. We managed to create a company in Milan to make the import of the objects, and give the objects in consignment to the gallery, right? And we thought it was worth it because it was a very interesting opportunity. We had to make it happen. This is the thing of having access to a certain amount of resources, because creating a company in Italy is expensive. It's not a cheap place to create a company. It's much easier to create it, in the US. It's much easier to create it, in Liechtenstein. I don't know, but that was a cost. Then you have to take the pieces with you. And then one of the conditions for the gallery to get your work there is that you have to send them packaged for foreign travel, because this gallery sells all over the world. If some client of them likes what you have and he lives in Japan, they have to send the work with the whole package to Japan. You have to send your work ready for shipping internationally. So the cost was not only to make the company in order for me to make it work, but also to make the packaging. And the packaging had to have specific qualities because these are European Union regulations. It's not some wood that you have to make and send it. No, you have to do it in a specific way with specific kind of wood. So we had to use an Italian provider to make the work. So it was complicated, but it was worth it because we wanted to be there, right? So we did that. We went to the Spazio of Rosanna Loni. We exhibited there, but then this is the thing. When we were to the gallery in Milan, she had hundreds of artists from all over the place. So there, here, you are competing with people that live in Milan, who live in Europe. There was this amazing designer from Denmark who was super successful, who was, behind me with a complete area full of furniture. And I was there with, my 5 small pieces of art or my 6 small pieces of art. And then you are not displayed in a way that's only you, that you capture the attention. I was placed in a space where there's so much information in the gallery. I have to say this first. It's a privilege and an honor to be there. It was an amazing opportunity. But then it's complicated to be noticed in a way to capture the attention. There's a lot of people are circulating, they want to see stuff. So it's tough to capture people's attention. If you did not pay for a specific space just for you inside the gallery and show your work and be there, or have a person there that creates the connections, the relationships with whoever goes there, it's difficult because there's so much stuff and so much good stuff. You get lost all over, right? That was Milan 223. In this year, because we were already in Milan, we had a lot of work in Milan. We have a place to leave the stuff in Milan. And I'm telling you this just to understand, because I want your audience to understand the costs. Because showing the work is one thing, but there are many costs involved in showing the work, right? And if you don't live in the place where everything is happening and you have to move around the work, everything becomes more expensive and more costly, and then more difficult. So how did I make this Milan Art Fair, this last Milan Art Fair with Super Studio? As happens in Milan Art in Miami Art Week, Milan becomes this huge city of design and art. And design initially was very focused on furniture. So the boundaries between all these disciplines are becoming more porous, no? So you have a lot of design, but then you have some design which is more artsy, and then you have design which relates to fashion, and then because there's so many people, and there's people, with a lot of money coming to Milan. A lot of the brands like Gucci, like Prada, like, Louis Vuitton, everyone says, okay, well, no, maybe we should be here too, because it becomes a moment where the clients that like luxury come to Milan. So it's a good moment for all kind of work that is luxury related to be there and find an edge that is related to design. And that was Super Studio. So what happened is that in 2023, Super Studio show was from all those design fairs, the one that I liked the most, because I thought this is the more techy, the most edgy, and the most artsy. So we applied to Super Studio. We showed our work the year before in Rosanna Orlandi. They thought, okay, it's like, okay, there's a check here. They were super professional. They fabricated everything, and it was also super expensive. But because we were already in Milan with a lot of the stuff there, we thought, okay, let's make a second bet. And in this case, I'm gonna be the only artist in all of these design fairs. So that's what happened. So I became the only guy with sculptures and toys in the fair. It was like making a solo show in a place that had around 85,000 visitors during the 4 days of Milano Design Week. We met a lot of people, we made a lot of contacts. Although the contacts that we made were not necessarily at that point, and I think the effects of being there are still happening, because your work is getting more noticed, then you're getting more clients of, you're getting more notice outside. So you're getting contacts from people from other countries, and you're becoming more international. But what happened there was that someone from another fair met us there. It was this Uomo Pitti fair. And it is a fair in Florence, which has nothing to do with art. And this is the funny part, but it has to do with men's fashion. And it's the most important men's fashion fair in Italy. It has people from all over the world. And these people are not, casual viewers, which you will find in a Milano Design Week, but they were more buyers from concept stores. And they offered us to go there with a very, very reasonable price, because they were trying to do a new thing. Because after COVID, the fashion business has been heavily impacted. A lot of stores are not selling enough clothing. So what's happening is that the stores are looking to diversify their offering. And the reasoning for them to offer us that space was, okay, take your work there, show it to people, and let's see how it goes. It's an experiment. So that's what we did. And then we make a lot of nice contacts. And then I've made hopefully, if everything goes well, I have an important sale to do to a client in Arizona in the United States because of that. So I don't know what's the insight here.
I think is sometimes when you are within an environment where, let's say, a traditional art fair or your own niche art fair, you're kind of among the thousands of artists who might look the same. The good things about it is that people come here for this kind of art, and they're more likely
Yes.
to like and know this type of art and collect this type of art.
Yes.
But at the same time, you don't stand out. So you spend all this money to look the same like other 100 artists around you, and it's also a downside. So going to another different kind of fair, like a fashion fair or like furniture fair, or you are the only artist in the whole venue, and people can spend more time because maybe they happen to be sophisticated.
That's an interesting strategy, right? It's like this idea of blue ocean and red ocean, right? A red ocean is an ocean full of sharks. They're all around there, and they're all like, looking for prey. And that has to be, a conventional art fair where you are competing with people who have immense amount of resources. And if you don't, they can hire the PR company. They can, give press. They can produce some nice video and do a social media campaign in order to keep people. Because you're fighting for attention, you're trying to get to the right people.
No, I mean, it's great then to be in the blue ocean.
Of course, yes, yes. So that was our thinking in that moment. Like, okay, let's try it because we're gonna be the only ones, and maybe important, interesting opportunities will come from that. And it's been, I don't think at this point I can say it has played amazingly, and I am in a position where, oh my God, I'm in the top of the world. But I'm thinking, okay, there's a very interesting learning here. We've made some clients, so we are taking more steps to, in 3, 4, 5 years, be in a much better place. Be more international. At this point, at least for me, what I'm thinking is I would prefer to be able to have a space or an affair where I can show a lot of my work so people can understand there's a universe behind it. Because what happens if you are in an art fair, probably, the gallery is going to show one or two things. And you need to have a very good gallerist who's willing to do the work of selling you aggressively. And the gallery, when they go to an art fair, probably their biggest incentive is to pay the price of the art fair. So you have a gallery, for instance, in Pinta, in Miami. Yeah. So you go to Pinta, Miami. I go with my gallerist to Pinta, Miami. He has to spend $20,000 just to be there, adding the amount of money that he's spending in plane tickets, in hotel fees, dining, blah, blah, blah. So this means that for him to make break even in these 4 or 5 days, he has to sell $50,000. So I can clearly imagine him to be super stressed. I feel for them because they're spending a lot of their money for them to be there.
Sometimes when you participate in a fair, you're spending
Yeah.
your own money and you are the gallery and you're the artist at the same time, right? Like the super studio. What are you thinking when, this huge amount of money going out of your bank account?
This is maybe, I think maybe the right way of thinking it is this, right? Your goal is to have the most exciting life as an artist in the long term. All right. If you have the resources, if you're not losing, you're not spending your, I don't know, your kids' education, or if you have the means, if you could spend it, I think it's worth it because you will be exposed to another level of experience and you will be exposed to another level of contacts and you will train your eye and you will meet interesting people and you will see your work in the context of others. I think you have to think it in that way. If you are thinking it in a business way, then you have to do a completely different analysis. If you think it from a business point of view, you have to analyze what's the kind of outcome that you're expecting. When we were accepted by Mrs. Orlandi's Espacio, our expectation was to create a very interesting market in Europe because that was an important place. I think that didn't happen for probably multiple reasons. I think the most strong reason is that you were not there. And this gallery has a lot of different artists and they have a lot of fees. And she has a big infrastructure to maintain. She needs to pay bills. She needs to pay salaries. So her incentive is going to be to sell whatever sells at a big price, right? If you work with a gallery that has boteros, the incentive of the gallery is to sell the boteros. They're going to put all the energy and the strategy to sell botero. They're not going to put it in you because you're not the ones who are paying the bills. Your art is not paying the bills. You are like the curiosity that, oh, by the way, I have this new young artist, see his work, he's funny, blah, blah, blah. But you need to sell the botero, your energy, your focus, your strategy, your contacts, your phone bills. They're going to be addressed to sell the big boteros.
Previously, you've just mentioned if the gallerists are just selling for passion, then they
Yes.
might not be a good salesperson. But then if they are like super business savvy and they just focus on their business strategies, then they might not want to work with you, a small young artist, right? So how to find the perfect balance, to find your person in the art world, like the right gallerist? Do you have some criterias?
It's by trial and error, I think. And really, this is the thing. Huh? So I don't have so much experience. I haven't worked with a lot of gallerists. I work with a couple. The best experience I have is, okay, this is, and I have the luck to, my wife, she owns a concept store. She's my best salesman. But then too, you are your best salesman. So you have to try and see which gallery has and sells the kind of work that you sell. And you have to, just send your portfolio continuously, I think, and see what it works. But the other thing is, you also want to try create a relationship. The gallery who I work with continuously is this gallery in Chile, and I have a very good relationship with the gallery. He's my friend. I also work with a gallery in Japan, and I also work with a gallery in Seoul. The language barrier is not so easy, so it makes it a little bit difficult, to work there constantly. You have to put the work of being constant with the galleries that you want to work with. But I'm guessing you have to build a relationship with the gallery owner of the person who worked with you, right? You have to create like a very good relationship with them.
Yeah, it's like maintaining a long distance relationship. It's a lot
But
of
it's
work.
difficult because keeping a long distance relationship is difficult. In my case, I'm a kind of weird professional because I do a lot on my own and by myself. So I'm not the kind of artist who is dependent on galleries to make their sales, to sell. I sell directly. I'm not sure if I'm the best advisor because I don't have a lot of experience working with galleries. I do have some experience working with galleries, but I don't have a lot of experience of working with many gallerists. What I do say is, I think that if you work with a gallerist, your focus and your way of thinking, you have to be like a partner for them. Because my impression, and I might be incorrect about this, is that galleries are very difficult businesses. It's in both of your interests for the gallery to do good, right? It's in your interest as in the gallery interest. So you have to, okay, if they want to travel to an art fair, okay, I'll go with you, right? Maybe what happens sometimes is that the galleries ask you specifically for money. Some galleries tell you, okay, I'll go to this art fair, but and I'll pay this much, but I need you guys to pay this, this, and this. And you say, okay, let's go and do it. If you're not working with a gallery, big gallery, if you want to get your gallery to move your work around the world and to go to art fairs, you need to be kind of like a partner, I think.
Very good thinking. And I have a question regarding repeating the fairs. Because sometimes you go with a gallery, sometimes you go by yourself. And especially when you go by yourself, you can really fully decide if you want to repeat a fair or not. And likely they would always take you back. So, do you normally repeat fairs? Is it a good thing to repeat a fair?
I think it's a good thing to repeat. I have personally repeated Art Fair Tokyo twice, Pinta twice, but then after doing Pinta twice, my sensation is that Pinta is not the right fit for me. So I'm not the right fit for them. It's not the right fit for me. Or maybe if I want to go to Pinta, I will have to think of a kind of work that fits good for that art fair. There's two things I would love to try in Miami. One would be to present a project in scope, because that art fair is an art fair that speaks to me and I think speaks to my work. That's one. And the other one thing that I would love to try would be to go to these kind of art fairs which have not this huge reputation, but who allow artists to, do a booth, to select a booth, to buy a booth. And they are cheaper because they know that artists cannot afford a lot. So they're more affordable. Still, probably is a good money, but then you can have a booth and show all your work by yourself. I would love to try that in Miami. And the experience will tell you if it's worth it to come back or not. My philosophical thing here, we would have to think of this like an endurance competition. And you have to be constant and you have to show up as many times as you can and learn from their experiences. And if it happens to you, amazing, but don't expect like immediate success, I think. There's so many artists out there. And I remember you made a long time ago, and I remember you made this video about health with artists. This is what happens. Is I think this is a line of work. It rewards more those who endure. All right, those who endure, so who keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, because you could be lucky and be, cause or be one of these guys, these guys who are in the right place at the right time, they become fashionable. But those guys are, if you analyze the amount of people doing art versus, the superstars, it's like, the 0.001% ones who are like that. So I'm thinking, don't set two expectations to be that guy. That's one, okay? And then two, okay, be smart about what you're doing and be constant and be, and try to take as much opportunities as you can to show your stuff. And at this point for me, in the kind of work I have, I'm thinking what I want to do is I want to do things at a larger scale, if possible, and then show my work in spaces where you have a high flux of people, because there is where you might find more opportunity of making the right contact with you. You're setting yourself to find that person, that contact, that company who will help you succeed, or the connections or the partner who will help you succeed. Even though, for instance, I question sometimes in my case if it's worth it to do a solo show in a gallery, because I'm thinking, okay, is it better to do a solo show in a gallery where I know that there's going to be a lot of people just the first day and then nobody goes? Because that's true. Okay, you do a show, everyone shows inauguration day. 20 days after that is just, one, two, blah, blah, blah. So is it worth it to give 40% of your work to a gallery? Or is it better to, spend a little money, rent an interesting place, make your show there, spend your money in making amazing videos, social media, create an amazing catalog, show your work for 1 day, 2 day top, and then boom, make a pop-up event. It disappears, and then everything by catalog. I'm not sure. And you keep not the 40%, you don't get the 60%, but you get the 100%. That's a good question. I don't know. I might try it.
Have you done a pop-up show?
Not yet, not yet. But we're thinking of doing that to see what happens. No, but then that's something you have to figure out by what works best for you. I think in this case, Peru is a small market, and there are very few galleries. And the kind of things I do in my case are appealing, I think, to big to big quantities of people, because I do monsters. I do toys, no? So I'm thinking maybe I could do a very interesting proposal for a mall and tell them, hey, why don't we create a nice experience with all these creatures, but let's make them at scale and make an event, and let's capture the most amount of people you like, and let's charge for a small fee for the entrance. I don't know.
Like Disney, but not Disney, no. Wackos
That's
World.
right, but let's make the Disney thing and it could be interesting because, at least in Peru, malls are a big thing at this point. People go to the mall. So you want to capture the most amount of people. So I'm thinking, okay, malls make sense because where else would you capture a big amount of people? In galleries, just the first day, and you're not sure if they're gonna buy. They mostly go in there for the drinks and the
Chat with
the
artists,
the
entertainment.
artist, blah blah blah. But then nobody buys anything, right? So it's interesting. It makes it interesting. It's like you find different ways of showing the work. I think that the important thing is you want to try to show the work to the most amount of people, and then art fairs make sense, pop-up events make sense. A gallery makes sense because it gives you prestige, probably, right? Making a solo show makes sense, but then maybe making a solo show up to a point, I'm not sure.
In the past, you've sold through different channels, galleries, art fairs, maybe also online
Yes.
because you have a personal website. I'm going to put the link in the description below so people can check it out. And you have art toys, and I guess it's also in design store. And you have all the different kind of channels and different revenues. In terms of percentage, art fairs, design fairs, all those kind of fairs where you show your art, how much percentage of sales do they bring you? Is that like half, or is that less than half, or more than half?
No, like the concept store. I think the concept store brings the highly percentage of sales. I want to put strength on my e-commerce side, and that's a completely different set of rules because then you have to start doing newsletters. It's a different set of rules, I think. No, but the concept store is the biggest. It's like this concept store gallery because the place you will find a lot of my work, but you also find a lot of furniture, design furniture. Very interesting. I think also I don't know how it works in other places, but an interesting niche is try to offer uh, like more like a corporate gift for corporations. Like a corporation has clients, has stakeholders, and they want to give nice stuff to their clients, to the stakeholders. So instead of giving them an expensive wine for Christmas, maybe they want to give them like a piece of art. And that's good money because a corporation will buy, I don't know, 500 pieces. Collaborations with corporations could be very, very interesting.
So if the art fairs did not bring you the majority of the sales, then what did it bring you?
Thanks to an art fair, I managed to go to Tokyo, to Japan, show my work in Japan, show my work in Korea, show my work in Singapore. I have like this, I think I have like this more of an international reputation, because you've been traveling and showing your work around. But this one thing, I think, to show your work, and there's another thing to sell your work. Maybe showing your work, it's easier. Making the sale, and this is from my experience, usually, I'm not sure, but art sales, in my experience, are not necessarily like an impulse, something you buy, like, buy impulsively. It's kind of like a more slow buy. So in that sense, and I was speaking with an artist, a couple of days ago. I was telling him he was having a bad experience with a client because he was making a mural and he agreed a price with the client, and then the client was not happy in the end with the result. And although she approved it, she was not happy and she wanted to pay like 50% of what she agreed. And he was ready to go, on social media and denounce her and blah blah. And I was telling him, you know what? Like, really, I understand that you are, you're upset and probably, likely so. But I think you have to protect the relationship with your client. Because what you want is, this is not coffee, right? You're not selling coffee. You're not selling something that people will buy every single day because they need it. They need their coffee to go to work. Now, art is a more kind of like I don't know, I need it because I bought an apartment, I bought a blah blah blah. And people like to know an artist, and people like to have a relationship with an artist. And once they have a relationship, once they like you, they most likely will buy you 4 or 5 times because they need a gift for a friend, they have to do a wedding present. So it's important for you to protect the relationship with the clients you have, because the relationship, this is more than transactional, right? You, when you are in this business, I think it's more kind of like, my best clients are my friends. They open opportunities to me that even like this space that I rent here for my workshop, is from a friend who initially became a client, and I've played a relationship with him for years. And he had this old house. He didn't know what to do with it, and I said, hey, why don't I rent it as a workspace? And now I have this wonderful space because of the relationship I had with this person. The relationship is what you have to protect. I don't know, this could get very metaphysical, right? But when you sell your art, you're connecting in a very deep way, I think. You're creating a connection, and that connection is gonna thing that lasts, continuously.
Can you show us your studio a little bit and what project are you working on right now?
So this is the place here. It's a house that has been refurbished. Here's some creatures. So it has like a second floor, and there's a lot of stuff.
And what materials are you working with right now?
I'm working on 3D printing. For instance, this is a 3D printing character.
Do you hand paint it after you've 3D printed it?
Yeah, yes. I hand paint. I have a robot which is guarding the door. You see him?
Yes.
Some more characters here. Can you see them there?
Yes. The tiny.
Yeah, they're tiny. Yeah, they're small guys. Yeah. These are bigger ones. Yeah.
Nice.
This one is. It's not too big, but it has nice light. No.
Cool.
Here I work some of my. No. Yeah.
Cool.
So this is it.
Lovely. Thank you very much for showing us your studio and sharing with us your insights. Thank you very much. Thank you. See you. Bye.